The term family friendly was basically stolen by a very narrow perspective of people who don't want their children exposed to reality. And I mean any reality that doesn't correspond with their illusions and dreams about the way the world should be. It's come to mean on the internet that people provide content that protects children from what's called foul or obscene language. A lot of the words that are used in so called foul and obscene language refer to body parts and how they are used, how they operate, and the private functions of the body, how we eliminate waste, and so on and so forth. And people get a big laugh out of using that kind of language, which I've never really understood because I don't really think it's healthy for people to be ashamed of our bodies since we have to live in them our whole lives, as short or long as that might be. To me, a definition of family friendly would be something like this: children are not just precious, they are the only future we have as a species, as a planet, and because we do dominate the planet, the way we act on the planet affects everything else that lives here, and we've only got this one planet. So, what we communicate to children, I know some of you will be insulted by this because you're like, oh, I'm a teenager, I'm not a child. But I'm kind of using the legal definition that if you're under 18 years of age, you have certain legal protections from things and are not expected to be responsible for certain things because the brain hasn't matured, there hasn't been a lot of experience in education, so people can't really make responsible decisions if they don't have a lot of information or a brain that is working at reasonably full capacity based on the way other average brains, and I mean like you put a bunch of people in the room and you counted how many people can do such and such a task like mathematics and so on at a certain level, or decide how to make a budget, or how to earn a living, or how to raise a child. A big glob of those people would know how to do that, and some people wouldn't know how to do that for a variety of reasons. Either they weren't taught, or they're very young and just haven't experienced that information yet, or they might have an impairment that keeps them from being able to understand how those functions work. Children are protected from certain things legally. That also means that adults have a responsibility to model to children ways to be in the world that are healthy. Now, there are YouTube channels and Twitter accounts and Facebook pages and so on and so forth that are ostensibly, I mean, it looks like on the surface that they are family friendly because there's no cursing. But there are other messages that are being transmitted that aren't healthy, that are teaching kids things that aren't true. Some of them have to do with the color of people's skin or what country they come from, which are really silly reasons not to like somebody just because they come from someplace different or look different than you or speak differently than you or their food is different. That's not a good reason to dislike and fear them. In fact, it's a really good reason to get to know them and learn to be friends with them and enjoy the fact that they know how to do things with ginger that you don't, and you know how to do things with ketchup that they don't. Imagine the recipes you could invent, for instance. And I think that carries through to science and medicine and art and history and all that sort of stuff. We can learn from each other. I see a lot of YouTube videos that are about gaming that teach really, really scary, frightening messages. Things like, okay, I'm really uncomfortable about talking about this because I may lose subscribers over this because, well, people will be offended. But I can't run a gaming channel without talking about social issues. I tried really hard to do that, but other gamers introduce social issues, and I have to address these things because they're teaching children things that aren't healthy. And I'm not talking about bad words, I'm talking about bad ideas. For instance, there's a really famous group of YouTubers who are on their own server. And I subscribe to a whole bunch of them because a YouTuber that I really like had joined their server. And I was just shocked and disgusted by the attitudes they had about people who aren't like them. They had really bad attitudes, not all of them, but a lot of them. And they were really vocal about it. And the ones who didn't express those ideas didn't stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not true. I've never experienced that about people. What are you talking about? And I'm going to talk, I have to use specific language. One of the things that some of them do is make jokes about rape. Now, some of you are too little to understand what rape is, but basically, what it means is when a person uses their own body, especially the private areas of their body, as a weapon to hurt other people, particularly in their private areas. It's disgusting. It's not about pleasure or enjoying each other or loving each other or feeling good. It's about humiliating the other person by violating them, by invading their body so that the person who's doing it might get pleasure, but the person they're doing it to is hurt and damaged. And I hear people making jokes about that, and it's not funny, and it should not be considered normal to talk about these things as though, oh, it happens all the time, it's no big deal. It's a big deal. I also hear things about who other people love and the way they love them. You know, if you are a guy and you like girls, that's great. But you know what? Some people are not like you. There are guys who like guys and there are girls who like girls. It's just the way it is. And when you say things that are insulting and hateful about people who are different than you, when you describe them in really disgusting and ugly ways and mock them, that doesn't say anything about bad about them. It says something unhealthy about you. Why are you so concerned about other people's behavior if they're not hurting you and all they're doing is loving each other? Then there's stuff about disabilities. This might sound like nitpicking, but it's really important because it not only teaches people who don't think they have disabilities that having disabilities is bad, but it tells those of us who have disabilities that we are wrong or we are not good enough or we are incomplete or we are stupid or we are inadequate or we shouldn't exist. It's words like lame. Lame means you cannot walk or you have difficulty walking. How does walking have anything to do with playing Minecraft? And why would a person be inadequate because they can't walk? My gosh, Stephen Hawking is one of the most brilliant physicists on the planet. And he hasn't walked for years and years and years. He can't even talk. But he's freaking brilliant. And I bet he could beat all of you at Minecraft. Although he's got more important things to do. Lame is one. Spaz is another one. Do you know what that means? It means the person has spasticity. A person with spasticity has little motor control. That means they can't control their muscles very well, which makes it really hard to play games. It makes it hard to talk. It makes it hard to walk and keep your balance without falling. Instead of laughing at people like that, instead of, okay, like, why call a skeleton a spaz? What you're saying is they're a person with disabilities who can't control their muscles. Why is that an insult? Why would you insult somebody that way? If you use a word like spaz, you're saying people with disabilities don't deserve to live, that they're subhuman, that they're not like the rest of us, that they have nothing to contribute, that they're just trouble and a problem. And none of that is true. And another word that's used a lot, and I really don't even want to use this word, I hate it so much. To me, it's like a racial slur, but it's the word retarded. That's an old word that's now used mostly as an insult. What it means is the person has developmental disabilities. Maybe there's something that happened with their brain while they were in their mother's uterus before they were born. Maybe there's genetic material that's not working the way most people's works. Retarded means developmentally disabled. It means they have challenges around learning things, around speech, around memory, a lot of stuff like that. They don't maybe have as high an intellectual capacity. But you know what? There are a lot of people with developmental disabilities who contribute a lot to our culture. A lot of them are very loving people and artistic people. I'm not saying all, but why not give them the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, you know what? This person could potentially have a lot to contribute and make our lives better and be a good part of the world. Now, why wouldn't you want somebody like that to learn how to play Minecraft and build things out of pretty colors and learn shapes and learn counting? And why wouldn't you want that? Why is retarded an insult? It doesn't show how tough you are if you pick on somebody who's weaker than you, or who you think is weaker than you. You know, you have to be really tough to live in a world and have disabilities. You have to be really tough to live in this world and be a girl. Girl gamers get treated really badly. Not all the time and not by all people, but there are a lot of insulting things people say about girls. Like, don't waste your diamonds on a hoe. Well, that implies that girls just want your money and that girls sell their bodies to pleasure men. And those are really not healthy images of girls. Girls can be astronauts. Girls are physicists and doctors and airplane mechanics and soldiers, and it's not healthy. So I didn't want to have this conversation. I didn't want to do this on my channel, but I think it's important. I think it's necessary. I think somebody has to do it. Somebody has to stand up for what's really family values, and that is children deserve to learn that life is beautiful and that they are good people and that their bodies aren't disgusting and that they have capacities to do things that nobody even thought of and that they should get the chance to learn and not be slapped down because oh, somebody's afraid of their color, or somebody's afraid of whether they're a girl or a boy, or somebody's afraid of who they love, or somebody's. It's silly, and it's not healthy, and it's immature. And when grown men are playing games for a living and teaching those messages, I have to speak up. Now, I'm getting trolled a lot right now because I actually questioned whether somebody's channel was family friendly. And his little fanboys are trying to pester me and tell me to shut up and calling me names, really bad names. And you know what? I have to set an example. I have to stand up for what I believe in. And when I see things that don't look healthy, I need to speak up and say that's not okay. Because if I do it, maybe I give somebody else permission to do it too. I've got people who have subscribed to my channel simply because I stood up and said people with disabilities have a right to be able to access your videos, and the way you're presenting them, they're not accessible to us right now. And I got a lot of hate for that. And people joined my channel because I had the nerve to stand up and say that. And the irony was, the guy I was saying that to was making a video to raise money for people with disabilities. And some people with disabilities wouldn't even be able to watch the video. And I had the nerve to say something. I didn't insult anybody. I didn't slam anybody. I didn't say you're a no good bum or any of that kind of stuff. I just said, here's a way you can make your video more accessible to people with disabilities. And I got a lot of grief for that. I mean, I didn't take it personally. I know people are ignorant. They don't understand. But how will they ever not be ignorant? How will they ever understand if people don't speak up? So I'm speaking up. And if you don't like it, then I'm going to speak up about these things. I'm sorry, but I have to speak my truth. I'm an old person, and I will be dying soon. And I want to leave this planet with some messages of hope. The idea that we can actually do things to make things better. Is not Minecraft an example of that? You start out with nothing, and you can build the most beautiful things and accomplish so much. Thank you for watching.